Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. They say hospitals are supposed to save lives, but what happened in UPMC Mercy that night, it wasn't salvation. It was the beginning of the end. My name is Alex Petrovic. I'm 34. I work as an emergency medical technician in Pittsburgh, Station 18, based in the Strip District. Been doing it for 9 years. You see things in this line of work: gunshots, overdoses, car wrecks. But nothing prepares you for what happened during that last shift. Nothing. It started like any other spring night. April 17th. Rain was coming down in sheets, bouncing off the windshield of the rig. I was partnered with Lisa Ramirez, a former Army combat medic who'd been with Allegheny EMS for about 3 years. She didn't talk much, but when things got hectic, she kept her cool. That night, we were halfway through our 12-hour shift. We'd already done 3 calls: 1 diabetic seizure, 1 guy with chest pain that turned out to be indigestion, and a teenage girl who swore she had a concussion from a TikTok challenge gone wrong. At 1:47 a.m., we got the call. Unit 18, respond to 600 Locust Street, Southside. Unresponsive male, possible seizure activity. Caller states patient is frothing and combative. Use caution. Lisa looked at me and raised an eyebrow. Frothing and combative. Could be synthetic drugs. I nodded, keying the mic. Unit 18 en route. We were at the address in 7 minutes. Narrow street. Duplexes packed tight. An old woman was waiting outside, wringing her hands under the porch light. Said it was her son, Mark, 28 years old, a welder, no known drug history. He'd come home from work, said he didn't feel right. Had a fever, then started shaking. By the time we arrived, he was on the floor growling. I swear to God, growling. He looked pale, his lips were cracked, and there was something in his eyes, something I'd never seen. Not just confusion, not fear, hunger. Lisa approached first. Mark, it's okay, we're here to help. That's when he lunged. I've seen meth freakouts. I've been around psych patients in full-blown episodes. This was different. Mark didn't respond to verbal cues. His movements were jerky, inhuman. He bit Lisa's sleeve and tore it before I could get the sedative ready. It took both of us and a responding officer to get him strapped to the stretcher. We gave him 10 milligrams of midazolam IM, enough to put a grown man down, but Mark just kept thrashing. We loaded him into the ambulance. Lisa wrapped her arm. He hadn't broken skin, thankfully. We contacted UPMC Mercy and warned them. Aggressive patient, possible unknown substance. They gave us a trauma bay on arrival. When we rolled into the ER, the place was already packed. A dozen people in the waiting area, nurses sprinting between rooms, and the overhead speakers calling for Code Gray, combative person, in 2 separate wings. Dr. Feldman met us at the bay. Tall guy, clean-shaven, calm under pressure. He asked for vitals, symptoms, talked screen possibilities, but as I relayed the case, Mark stopped thrashing. Just lay there, eyes rolled back, mouth slack. A nurse moved to check his pupils, and that's when he sat up and bit her face. It happened so fast. Blood sprayed across the trauma bay. People screamed. Mark tackled Feldman to the floor. Security rushed in, tasers drawn. They hit him twice. He kept moving. Lisa and I backed out. I hit the lockdown switch by instinct. The ER doors sealed. I'll never forget the sound of Dr. Feldman screaming. Then, nothing. Just the wet shuffle of someone moving inside. Security wanted to breach, but Protocol said wait for a supervisor. Meanwhile, Lisa sat on a gurney, eyes glassy, cradling her bitten sleeve. "I don't think this is drugs," she whispered. The nurse who'd been bitten, her name was Angela, was moved to isolation, but within 15 minutes she was seizing. Her skin went pale, her pupils dilated. She coded once, then again. They got a heartbeat, but she wasn't right. She started biting through her intubation tube. I saw it myself through the window. It was like something else had taken over. Lisa and I were told to stay for decontamination, but the chaos was spreading. The code gray calls were now every few minutes. Then a code black, hospital lockdown. Then we heard the screaming. Not one floor, multiple. That's when I grabbed Lisa and said, "We need to leave, now." The head nurse didn't argue. She handed us N95 masks and 2 more sedatives. "If you see someone like that again, don't talk. Just knock them out or run." We made it as far as the loading dock when the alarms began. "Evacuate. Evacuate. Code red. This is not a drill." Lisa and I pushed the gurney with our gear toward the rig. That's when we saw Officer McNeil, one of the security guys, staggering out. His left arm was torn open. Deep, arterial spray. He was muttering, "They're biting everyone. Nurses, patients. They don't stop. They don't stop." He collapsed on the pavement. We loaded him in. No time for vitals. We just drove. I turned down Forbes Avenue and headed for Station 18. Radio traffic was a mess. Dispatch was barely functional. Other EMS crews were reporting similar attacks across the city. Southside, Oakland, even a call from Squirrel Hill. Patients seizing, biting, spreading something. It wasn't long before the word started getting whispered across the comms. Possible rabies-like infection. Unknown viral agent. CDC contact requested. None of us said the word, not yet. Back at the station, we locked the gates. Only 3 other teams made it back. Most had scattered or gone dark. We turned the briefing room into a makeshift quarantine. Lisa kept checking her arm. It looked fine, no broken skin, but she was sweating, shaking. At 4:30, we lost power, not citywide, just our building. Generator kicked in, but the radios were crackling. Cell service was garbage. We heard on the fire scanner that Mercy had gone silent. No response from inside. Police units posted at the perimeter reported movement. Figures inside the ER, pacing, banging on doors. Then, a paramedic named Shaw came in, alone. His partner didn't make it. He said they picked up a man in Shadyside convulsing, blood in his mouth. They brought him to UPMC Presbyterian. Same story. Within minutes, staff were attacked. Patients turned on nurses. One guy leapt off a gurney and bit a respiratory therapist in the neck. Shaw ran. Said it was like watching people flip into something inhuman, like a switch. We locked the doors tighter, blocked the bay entrances with the ambulances themselves. That morning, the mayor issued a citywide advisory. No formal statement, just a line across the emergency broadcast channel. Shelter in place, avoid hospitals. We knew then it was everywhere. Lisa didn't speak much after dawn, just kept looking out the window, gripping a syringe of sedative in one hand. I stayed with her, keeping my radio close, logging everything. Every call, every report. I had to document it. Someone needed to know what was happening. Outside, the city felt unnaturally still. No commuter traffic, no buses. Just a silence broken by the occasional siren, far off, or a single helicopter cutting across the sky. The kind you see in National Guard deployments. Black fuselage, no markings. The radio had gone quiet by 7:12 a.m., except for the fire department's local frequency. Engine 4 out of Lawrenceville reported losing contact with their crew inside UPMC Children's Hospital. One firefighter transmitted a short burst. Sounded like he was trapped inside a stairwell, out of breath, whispering about children biting nurses, covered in blood. The silence. We tried to reach dispatch, nothing. Even 911 was down. Cell signals bounced off towers, but no one was picking up. At some point, I realized the network wasn't overloaded. It had been shut down. Lisa finally stirred and broke the silence. "We're not going to be able to stay here much longer." I nodded. She was right. The station had thin windows and no metal shutters. Supplies were limited, 2 days of food, maybe less if more people showed up. No weapons beyond a few trauma shears and rescue axes. The closest police precinct, Zone 2, was likely overwhelmed or offline. We gathered what we could: IV bags, sterile gloves, trauma kits, emergency rations. I checked the narcotics locker and loaded a small duffel. My Dazolam, morphine, ketamine, epinephrine, lidocaine. Not because we'd be treating people in an ambulance anymore, but because we might need to put someone down quietly, or keep someone alive long enough to escape. Around 8:20 a.m., someone started banging on the bay doors. Heavy, desperate. Not the mindless pounding we'd heard on the radios. This was deliberate, rhythmic. I peered through the glass and spotted a man in surgical scrubs, soaked to the knees in blood, waving an ID badge. I cracked the outer lock and raised the shutter just enough to let him crawl in. "Dr. Kellner," he gasped. "Presbyterian, I got out, barely." He collapsed on the tile floor, covered in sweat and breathing hard. Lisa and I moved fast, checked his vitals, scanned for bites, scratches, anything suspicious. He was clean, just dehydrated and in shock. We gave him fluids and let him talk. Kellner had locked himself in a medication room on the 3rd floor when the outbreak spread across the ICU. He watched 2 nurses get swarmed. Said one of them reanimated in under 4 minutes after cardiac arrest. He saw patients who'd been restrained break bones to get free. They ignored pain, fought through it. One of the infected bit through a crash cart handle to get at a tech hiding behind it. "It's not just a virus," he said, voice hoarse. "It rewires them, accelerates metabolism, suppresses all inhibition, overrides the pain reflex. It's like they become something else." That aligned with what we'd seen. The rapid onset, the inhuman strength, the absence of logic or self-preservation. These weren't just sick people, they were predators. Driven, organized in bursts of chaos. By 10 a.m., we started hearing low helicopters moving toward the city center. We caught a brief signal burst on the police band. Federal quarantine perimeter established. All civilians to remain indoors. Use of force authorized. The military was here. But it wasn't a relief, it was a warning. Pittsburgh had been cut off. Lisa gathered the others, Shaw, Kellner, 2 EMTs who'd made it from Mount Oliver. We needed a plan. Staying in the EMS station meant waiting to get overrun. We decided to head north toward the Allegheny River, using back streets. There were small supply depots in the strip, warehouses, restaurant storerooms. If we could get across the 16th Street Bridge, we might reach the fire academy. It had generators, fuel, maybe weapons. We packed quickly, loaded the rigs with what we could carry. Lisa drove the lead ambulance. I followed in our old Ford Explorer squad vehicle. We didn't use sirens. We kept it quiet. For the first mile, the streets were empty. Trash scattered in the wind. 1 or 2 cars abandoned with doors open, blinkers still flashing. A dead silence hung over everything. Then, as we passed to the 21st Street underpass, we saw the first bodies. 4 of them, civilians. 2 men, 2 women, all partially devoured, limbs torn open, One had his throat bitten so deep the windpipe was exposed. We didn't stop to check for pulses. Lisa looked away, her knuckles white on the wheel. They were trying to get out. They didn't make it. A few blocks later, we hit the edge of the strip district. That's when we heard the screaming. A man ran out of the loading bay of the sensory warehouse, waving a pipe, chased by 3 figures. Their movements were wrong. Jerky, aggressive, off balance like sprinters who'd forgotten how to stop. The man turned toward our vehicles. "Help me! Help!" I hit the brakes. Lisa did too, but before we could even react, one of the infected tackled him from behind. They hit the pavement in a heap. The others joined in. We didn't get out. I stared through the windshield as they tore into him, fast and frantic. Blood pooled in seconds. The pipe rolled out of his hand, clanging against the concrete. Lisa slammed the vehicle into gear and pulled around them. The infected didn't even look up. Not at us, not at the engines. Just kept beating. It became clear we weren't prey unless they saw us move, unless we made noise. These things weren't random. They had triggers. Motion. Sound. Maybe light. We reached the 16th Street Bridge and slowed. The north side was darker, less movement, fewer infected, but also more military presence. We saw a roadblock at the other end of the span. 2 Humvees. A group of soldiers in MOP gear waving rifles, one with a megaphone. Turn around, bridge is closed, quarantine perimeter. Return to residence or shelter in place. Lisa opened the window and yelled, "We're EMS. We have a doctor, survivors." The soldier raised his weapon. "This is your final warning." We didn't push it. We backed away slowly, turned west instead, down Liberty Avenue. At this point, every road north or east was cordoned off. National Guard had turned the rivers into natural quarantine lines. They were locking Pittsburgh down block by block. And the hospitals, every last one, was now considered hostile territory. We turned south instead, toward the Hill District. Our new goal was the old fire station at Bedford and Crawford. Decommissioned, but still structurally sound, with thick doors and a reinforced garage. We'd trained there in the past. I knew the layout. Getting there meant cutting through Uptown. That's where we saw what the news wasn't showing. Rows of people standing in front of UPMC Mercy, banging on the locked ER doors, begging to be let in. Some looked injured, others infected. You couldn't tell who was who anymore. One of them turned toward us, and even from 50 feet away I saw the blood around her mouth. Lisa didn't stop. We gunned it down the avenue, tires spraying water, hearts racing. Behind us, something growled. Not like a dog, deeper, more human, but twisted. We reached the old station by 12:14 p.m., just as rain began to fall again. Thunder rolled in the distance. Lisa and I opened the steel shutters manually, backing both vehicles into the garage before sealing them tight. Inside, it smelled like mildew and old oil, but it was secure. We barricaded the doors with old furniture and locked the roof hatch from the inside. The second floor had a break room, a kitchen, bunk rooms. We settled in. The place was dusty and stripped of most usable gear, but it had thick walls and only 2 entrances, the front garage bay and the side personnel door. Both reinforced steel. It would take more than just mindless shoving to breach them. That gave us a sense of control, at least for the moment. By dusk, we'd taken stock of our resources. Between the 2 ambulances and what remained in the station, we had a week's worth of IV fluids, about a dozen protein bars, half a case of bottled water, and a large bag of glucose packets. Not ideal, but enough to get by if we rationed carefully. Shaw found a propane camping stove in a storage closet, probably forgotten after the last training drill before the building was decommissioned. Lisa set up the old dormitory bunk room as our rest area. 3 mattresses still had plastic covers. The rest we turned over, checking for mold or signs of rats. It was oddly domestic. Somewhere deep down, I think we all wanted the illusion of normalcy again, just a few minutes to feel human. But the silence outside never lasted. At 9:17 p.m., the banging started. Not at the front door, but near the side. Measured, steady. 3 thuds every 20 seconds. Someone, or something, was testing the perimeter. We killed all lights and listened. Shaw crept down with a flashlight and used the old periscope slit in the steel door to look outside. "There's 2 of them," he whispered when he came back up. "Just standing there. One's got a hoodie on, but the face, something's off. Like the jaw's broken and hanging wrong. The other one keeps pacing, tapping the door with what looks like a rebar hook." It wasn't the mindless chaos we'd expected. This was different, methodical. We stayed dark and quiet. The banging stopped after 20 minutes, but it left an imprint, an unease none of us could shake. The next morning, Lisa drew up a map of our surroundings using a dry erase board salvaged from the garage office. We marked supply spots, known danger zones, and possible evac routes. Kellner suggested reaching the Duquesne University Science Building. Said the biology labs might have a BSL-2 cabinet and cold storage. If we could secure it, it might be useful for preserving samples or even attempting to understand what this infection was. None of us were virologists, but Kellner had done enough clinical research during his residency to recognize patterns. He laid it out over coffee, using a stack of napkins for notes. Whatever this is, it bypasses standard incubation. We're talking minutes, not hours. The transformation, loss of higher cognitive function, surge in aggression, elevated pain threshold, it's consistent with neuroinvasive viral behavior. But the speed and the strength, it's beyond anything documented. I added, and they don't collapse, even when wounded. The guy at the warehouse took 3 hits to the chest and still moved like nothing happened. Lisa tapped the table. They're not acting like they're sick. They're acting like they're being driven, like a mission. Kellner looked up. "You're saying it's intentional behavior?" She nodded. "Not coordinated in the way we'd recognize, but they focus, they chase, they circle back, and they're starting to test defenses." That hit all of us hard, because if the infected were evolving, or adapting, that meant our time inside the station was finite. By noon that day, we sent out a recon team, Shaw and I, armed with trauma shears, a crowbar, and a modified Halligan bar from the truck. We moved on foot through the alleys toward 5th Avenue. Our goal was to reach a small restaurant supply wholesaler we'd spotted on Google Maps a day earlier, before service dropped. If the building hadn't been looted, it might still hold canned goods, water, maybe even fuel. Pittsburgh felt like a ghost city. Cars abandoned mid-turn. Storefronts smashed but not emptied. The rot hadn't set in fully yet. It had only been 2 days. But everything felt off. Trash blew across the streets in great, sweeping gusts. Somewhere in the distance, an alarm kept going off, echoing down the concrete canyons. As we neared the corner of 5th and Dinwiddie, we saw movement inside an old apartment complex. A silhouette in the second-story window. Female, mid-30s maybe, moving normally. Alive. She saw us and tapped the glass, motioning down towards the street, then holding up a sign. "Second floor, safe, 3 people, 1 wounded." We approached cautiously, but checked the building perimeter first. It hadn't been breached. Inside, we climbed the stairs quietly, every step echoing. The woman, Hannah, had barricaded the second-floor landing with a bookcase and a large sofa. Smart placement. Limited approach angles. Inside her apartment, she introduced us to her father, George, and a neighbor named Julian. George had been bitten on the calf, but the wound was shallow. He wasn't showing signs of infection, even 14 hours in. No fever, no behavioral changes. It gave us our first hope. Maybe bites weren't a guaranteed death sentence. Maybe there were variables: depth, location, viral load. We offered them shelter at the firehouse, but Julian shook his head. We have supplies, water, and the building's solid. Better to have separate locations. If one falls, the other can still make it. He was right. We gave them one of the handheld radios, an old Motorola we'd found in our rig, set it to channel 5. Check in every 3 hours, I said. If we miss a call, assume we're compromised. On the way back, Shaw and I detoured to the supply warehouse. Its windows were broken, but the metal roll door in back was still intact. I forced it open with the Halligan bar and ducked inside. The air was stale and dry, but untouched. Rows of shelves held gallon jugs of vinegar, oil, pallets of rice, salt, cans of beans, pickled vegetables, packs of medical gloves. A windfall. We took what we could carry: 2 duffels full of food, 5 liters of water, and a case of alcohol wipes. Back at the firehouse, spirits were higher. For a moment, it felt like progress. That night, Lisa and I took rooftop watch. The city was darker now. Whole blocks had gone quiet, not just without power, but without motion. The infected moved only when drawn. They weren't hunting by default. They waited. Around midnight, I spotted the silhouette of a man standing on top of a city bus that had jackknifed into the corner of the Center Avenue and Kirkpatrick Street. He wasn't moving, just scanning. We watched him for over 20 minutes. He didn't pace, didn't snarl, just stood there, barely shifting. Then, as if sensing something, he dropped silently into the shadows between buildings. Lisa tracked him with her binoculars until he disappeared entirely. By 2:34 a.m., the handheld crackled to life. Hannah's voice, panicked and breathless. We barely caught the message. Julian was gone. The door was breached. Then the signal cut. Screaming in the background was followed by harsh static. At first light, Lisa and I prepared to move. We left Kellner and Shaw at the firehouse with the other survivors, gave them a flare gun and one of the propane tanks in case they needed to make a distraction or a last stand. Lisa grabbed the crowbar and a compact rescue axe, while I strapped the duffel of medical gear and our last sedative vials across my back. We moved fast, avoiding the main roads, cutting through alleys and between abandoned garages. The route we'd taken the day before was still passable. A delivery van burned near the intersection of Forbes and Pride Street, but no bodies. No fresh blood either. That was both reassuring and unnerving. It meant the infected had moved on. Or were waiting. By the time we reached the apartment building, the front entrance was wide open. Not smashed, not torn off, just open. Like someone had let the door swing back and hadn't bothered to close it. Inside, the stairwell reeked of sweat and copper. The barricade at the second floor was still mostly intact, but the bookcase was shoved aside, the sofa partially toppled. We advanced slowly, every step tight with tension. The apartment door was ajar. Lisa moved left, sweeping the hallway. I went straight. The living room was trashed, cushions shredded, a lamp broken. Blood smeared across the floor leading into the back bedroom. But no bodies. No signs of struggle that explained what had happened after the scream. The Motorola radio was still on the windowsill, blinking red. Its battery nearly dead. I picked it up and hit transmit. "This is Alex at the second-floor apartment. No contacts, no survivors. We're returning." A scraping sound cut through the silence. Lisa called out from the hallway. Back room, I heard movement. We moved together, slow and steady. I pushed the door open and found Hannah crouched in the corner, rocking. She was covered in blood, eyes glassy and wide. Her hands were shaking violently, cradling a kitchen knife. Lisa knelt down. "Hannah, you're safe. It's us." She blinked and focused. "Julian." Julian let one in, said he thought it was his sister. She looked like her, sounded like her, but she wasn't. It wasn't. Lisa checked her arms, her neck, her ankles. No bites. "You're not infected," she said. "You're okay." "I locked myself in here," Hannah whispered. "I heard them dragging George out. He was screaming. Then it stopped." We helped her up and started back. But something was off. Hannah moved strangely, too stiff. Her hands were cold. Her pulse was fast, but her skin wasn't flushed. She wasn't in shock. She was resisting something. Halfway down the stairs, she stumbled and dropped to her knees. Lisa caught her and checked her pupils. "Damn it," she muttered. "Constricted. She's turning." We had a sedative ready. A mix of ketamine and midazolam, enough to put a grown man into deep sedation in 30 seconds. I drew it up and jabbed it into Hannah's thigh. She twitched, eyes fluttering, and slumped into unconsciousness. We carried her back on a makeshift litter from a closet door. Every corner felt like it might come alive. Every window a risk. The moment we reached the firehouse garage and signaled with the flashlight, Shaw opened the side door. He helped pull Hannah inside while Kalner took her pulse and temp. She was burning up. Her heart rate had doubled. Her lips were dry, cracked open in places. A small tremor began working its way down her spine. "She's on the edge," Kalner said. "This buys us time, but not much." We restrained her gently in one of bunk beds with zip ties and sheets. We weren't going to abandon her, not yet. That evening, I climbed to the roof and scanned the skyline. Downtown was gone, half of it dark, the other half flickering with scattered fires. No helicopters, no perimeter patrols. The military had pulled out. What had been a quarantine zone was now a containment dead zone. We weren't being rescued. We were being left behind. At 10:45 p.m., Shaw spotted a large group approaching from the Strip District. Dozens, maybe more than 100. They moved in staggered clusters, silent and direct. No groaning, no screeching. Their gait had evolved, less frantic, more controlled. Some had picked up blunt objects, pipes, sticks, even a crowbar. They weren't using them yet, but they were carrying them. I marked their location on the whiteboard map. They were sweeping outward, building by building, like a hive testing for weakness. Lisa and I agreed. We had to leave the firehouse. It wasn't defendable anymore, not for long. Our plan was to move west toward the West End Bridge and cross the Ohio River. From there, we could attempt to reach the rural zones west of Crafton, or head toward the Allegheny County Airport if any flights were being arranged. We didn't have confirmation, but rumors on the shortwave suggested the CDC had set up a temporary quarantine center near McKeesport. Packing was fast. Medical duffels, water, food, batteries. One of the ambulances still ran. Shaw hot-wired it, and we quietly rolled out by 3:20 a.m., keeping lights off and maintaining a slow, steady pace. As we passed Mercy Hospital one last time, the building loomed in shadow. Its glass facade shattered, its interior dark. But what drew our attention wasn't the ruin. It was the bodies. Strung up across the main ER sign were what looked like staff. Scrubs still visible, hanging limp from makeshift ropes or bindings. None of us spoke. None of us could look away. They weren't trophies. They were warnings. Further down, we hit a barricade near the Birmingham Bridge. Not military, civilians. cars stacked 3 deep, men and women with hunting rifles, tactical gear, home-built armor made from road signs and baseball catcher's pads. Their leader, a former Army NCO named Garrick, questioned us hard, asked for proof we weren't infected, checked everyone for wounds, even demanded pulse and pupil checks. Once cleared, he told us the truth. The hospitals were ground zero, not just for the spread, but for containment. Someone, he didn't say who, had ordered sealed lockdowns of every major hospital in the city and refused to allow anyone in or out once the outbreak began. Entire staff were sacrificed. It was deliberate. Whatever this was, he said, they knew it was coming, and they let it burn inside the safest buildings. He showed us maps, reports from other cities, Cleveland, Cincinnati, even Erie, all similar stories. All began in emergency rooms, high-density exposure environments. Initial patients were violent, unpredictable, and transitioned in under 5 minutes. It was never meant to be stopped in the traditional sense. We moved with his group at dawn, crossing the bridge under cover of heavy morning mist. Lisa rode up front, eyes scanning every rooftop, every alley. I sat in the rear, keeping watch on Hannah. Her breathing had slowed and her eyes finally closed. Whether from the sedation or from the body giving up, we didn't know. She never woke up. We buried her behind the ruins of a church near Sheridan, wrapped in an old tarp, marked the grave with her name scratched into a piece of driftwood. Lisa stood there longer than the rest of us. No tears, just silence. That night, we made it to a radio relay station near the edge of Robinson Township. It was manned by survivors from the state's emergency services team, communications specialists who had rigged long-range signal repeaters to broadcast across the region. That's where I sent this report, this entire account. If you're hearing this, understand one thing: it didn't start on the streets. It started in hospitals, places we trusted, places we ran to, places designed to keep us safe. Don't go back. No one is coming. We survive by staying away. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.